My name is Imad Harb. I am the Director of Research and Analysis at Arab Center, Washington, D.C. Welcome to this conversation today with Rend Al-Rahim, who is the President of the Iraq Foundation and a former Iraqi Ambassador to the United States. Today, I'm having this conversation with Rend on the latest developments in Iraq. And, as we know, Iraq has been going through some really difficult political, social, economic, and security times. Last October, the country elected a new parliament, but the parliament, although it has been seated, that parliament has not yet chosen or elected a new prime minister. The president of the Republic, the term of the president of the Republic expires in October, and there is no new president. So the country is being run under a caretaker government led by Mustafa al-Kadhimi. The latest in Iraq is that Muqtada al-Sadr, the leader of the Sadrist movement, has actually declared that he is quitting politics, and he ordered his parliamentarians, 73 of them, members of parliament, to quit parliament, which they did. They resigned their positions. He also ordered his supporters to go down to the green zone, where they, a few days ago, occupied parliament, occupied even the presidential palace. The last few days, there were clashes in Baghdad at the green zone, in which some 30 people died and scores of others were injured. So the country is really in a political stalemate. The government is in caretaker fashion. Prime Minister al-Kadhimi is trying to keep things under, in some sort of a law and order situation, but things in Iraq are at a stalemate, and the country is going through some really dangerous times. Rend, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can we really say that Muqtada al-Sadr has actually quit politics in Iraq?
Thank you, Imad. Well, first of all, let us just remark on how stunning it is that Muqtada al-Sadr could order thousands of his followers to withdraw from the green zone, from the perimeter of the parliament, from the government palace, from the green zone altogether, and to quit protesting within 60 minutes, and to watch them comply and file out. It was really a stark demonstration of the power that he has over a huge following that is literally ready to die at his command. It was an astonishing spectacle to see all these people at one word just walk out so quickly. Right. Now, has Muqtada retired from politics? I haven't counted, but this may be the fourth, fifth time that he has retired from politics. Yeah. So saying that, he announced that he's retiring from politics. He said that he was withdrawing, that he has nothing to do with the political process anymore. I don't think that we can assume that this is for real and for good. Correct. I think we have to assume that something will happen and he will declare himself obliged to return to the political arena under pressure of demands from his followers, from the Sadrists, under pressure from the demands of the nation. In other words, the national situation will require him to, and therefore, with heavy heart, he will be obliged to return to politics. And I have to say that Muqtada, I think when he makes these announcements, he's not being frivolous. I think he means it at the time. Look, he's a very reactive, very impulsive, very emotional person, if one can say that. And therefore, I think he means it at the time, at the moment, and when he comes back, he will mean it. So this is not the end of Muqtada Sadr. It is certainly not the end of the Sadr movement and his vast, vast following. He will come back at the appropriate time. And frankly, I think, I don't want to sort of preempt the questions, but I think the appropriate time may be soon.
Yeah. As a comment on what you said about their readiness to just simply listen to him, and evacuate within 1 hour. I mean, he did the same thing with 73 members of parliament. He basically ordered to withdraw. I mean, these people supposedly are representatives of a constituency. People voted for them. And then he just orders them to leave, to resign their positions in parliament. It was really amazing, truly amazing.
And I think it was a blunder. It was a real blunder.
Right, exactly. I mean, the coordination framework just simply went ahead and appointed replacements. This dovetails with another question that is also related to Sadr's power and basically legitimacy. Basically Ayatollah Kadhim al-Ha'iri practically withdrew his support. Basically he left him, like they say, high and dry, religiously speaking, from a religious legitimacy point of view. How much do you think does this, how much influence will it have? Will it at all have any influence on Sadr's legitimacy and what we were just talking about, the devotion of his followers to him?
Yeah, the relationship between Sadr himself and the Sadr movement and the masses of Sadrists with Ha'iri is a complicated one, and has gone through a lot of sort of stages over the years.
Right.
This is not the first time that Ha'iri has disavowed Sadr.
Right.
He disavowed him in 2004, and again later on in 2010. There have been many periods or moments in time since 2003 that Ha'iri has stood against Sadr. Now, Sadr has never responded to this disavowal by Ha'iri in any open way. But to what extent, except in a most recent statement by one of Sadr's followers called Muhammad Saleh al-Iraqi, who is thought to be a nephew of Muqtada Sadr and who acts as his spokesperson. It is only a few days ago that Muhammad Saleh al-Iraqi came out with a statement, first of all, saying that the retirement of Ha'iri was not voluntary, was in fact forced upon him by the Iranians, but more importantly, saying that Ha'iri was not actually the marja that Sadr, the father, had actually recommended his followers to emulate. Because, for one thing, according to Muhammad Saleh al-Iraqi, Ha'iri lives in Qum, and the marja for any Iraqi Shiite should live in Iraq. This was a very interesting point because it has never been put in those terms. And that what Sadr, the father, had actually said was that the Sadr followers should emulate one of the marjas in Najaf.
Right.
And therefore, there was this statement really indicated a complete break between Sadr and his movement and Ha'ari. But this has been an ascending thing, a cumulative rift, if you want. I'm mixing my metaphors, a widening rift over the many years. To what extent is this going to affect the Sadr movement and the followers of Sadr? I do not think that it will affect them very much theologically.
Right.
Because it is my understanding, and there are many people who know much more about the complexities of the marja'iyya and the taqleed and the emulation, who assess that the Sadr movement, the followers of Sadr, have been shifting away from Ha'ari in any case for some time, and that their marja' is probably Sistani now rather than Ha'ari, and has been for a long period of time. So in terms of the theological emulation, I don't think it's going to make very much difference. Is it going to affect Muqtada Sadr politically? Again, I think there are other factors that are going to affect Muqtada Sadr politically more than the distance from Ha'ari, more than Ha'ari saying, you know, everybody should now follow Khamenei, all the followers of the Sadr movement should follow Khamenei rather than me. I don't think that's going to be the politically decisive factor for Muqtada.
Thank you for that. You know, on the opposite side of the Shia street, so to speak, are the coordination framework people, the militias and the formations you know, that are friendly with Iran mostly. But you know, how are they exploiting the situation? I mean, are they taking advantage of it to really better their situation, better their political chances of forming a new government, basically choosing who might be the next president when Barham Saleh's term expires? How are they dealing with that?
You know, when Muqtada Sadr, of course, made a number of mistakes over the last few months, the first of which was with a withdrawal from parliament. The other thing that has really affected him, I think politically, going back to that point of the political impact of the recent events, I think that one of the things that has hurt him politically is the fact that he sanctioned this occupation of the Green Zone, of Parliament, of the palace, and then we had these armed clashes,
right,
which in a way were inevitable. I mean, one could see it coming. And then 30 people were killed, hundreds were wounded. Most of those people who died were from the Sadrist movement.
That's correct, yeah.
And then suddenly, Muqtada Sadr asked them to withdraw, in spite of the fact that there has been loss of blood. And then he came out yesterday with a statement to order them to withdraw and to stop protesting. And the statement was a very emotional one, but in a way, he apologized. He actually apologized he didn't say that I was the cause of the bloodshed, but he apologized for the fact that there was bloodshed. And the statement was not a very successful statement. And I think, to my mind, if the coordination framework had any wisdom, they would say, this is the best moment to enter into negotiations with Muqtada Sadr.
Right.
First of all, there was a show of force by Muqtada Sadr. He showed what he could do, the absolute control that he has over his people. But it was also a moment of weakness for Muqtada Sadr. And the coordination framework should have jumped on this, and they and all the other political parties should have said, okay, this is now, we really need, after this bloodshed, after this danger to the country, this is the moment when we should sit down and have a dialogue.
Yeah, they probably should have given him some sort of an exit ramp, so to speak.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, the coordination framework
Yeah.
yesterday came out with a statement that was appalling. The statement spoke as if nothing had happened,
Right.
as if Muqtada Sadr had not mobilized hundreds of thousands of people and then ordered them out, as if the country was not on the brink of civil war, as if Muqtada Sadr was not weakened, if you want. They came out with the exact set of demands that they had made previously. They want to convene parliament. They want to nominate and vote for their prime minister, their choice of prime minister. They want to go back to the institutions and the system of government that has already been discredited.
True. Yeah.
And they were behaving, in the sort of sense of hear no evil, see no evil. And they were completely tone deaf to the voice and the sentiment of a vast number
Yeah,
of
almost a victor's hubris. I mean, they just wanted to exploit the situation in a political manner, not necessarily trying to ameliorate the conditions on the ground.
Exactly. They were very triumphalist in their statement. And this is, they completely lost an opportunity, in my view. Yeah. And of course, today, and this is why I say things don't look good. Today, even though Muqtada Sadr withdrew from politics, his spokesperson, Mohammed Saleh al-Iraqi, came out with a vitriolic statement against the coordination framework. He condemned them in the starkest, most violent terms, and said, "You are now our perennial enemies, and there is no compromise." So I think there was a moment that we lost.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say that essentially the coordination framework is not of one mind. And I think this was something we need to know. There are dovish people, I wouldn't say doves, but dovish, and then there are the hawks. The dovish include Hadi al-Amiri, who is the Fatah, head of the Fatah movement. He is also the head of the Badr Brigade, one of the militias. But he tends to be more moderate. And he has often been the go-between between the coordination framework and Muqtada Sadr. The other dovish people are Haidar al-Abadi and Ammar al-Hakim, who are in favor of dialogue. But then you have the hawks, headed by Maliki, who, by the way, won many of the seats that were relinquished by Muqtada Sadr's MPs. And of course, you also have Qais al-Khazali, who is also very hawkish. But it sounds as if, given, reading the statement that the coordination framework came out with yesterday, it sounds as if the hawkish camp has now dominated the coordination framework.
Yeah, they don't appear to be what's the expression? Take any prisoners. They want to just exploit the situation for their best interest.
Yes. I think. Sorry, may I add something? Yeah. I think they are misreading the situation, because if they think that Muqtada Sadr is so weak that they can just roll over him, I think they're wrong.
Right.
He has had a moment of weakness, yes, but to say that he has been incapacitated or that his wings have been clipped is a misreading.
Correct. That's right. I want to get into Sadr's other allies, not only his supporters, but he has his allies, the sovereignty coalition, the Sunni sovereignty coalition, and the Kurds, or at least part of the Kurds. What are they saying today?
Let's start with the Kurds, because in a way, they are the ones that have the greatest weight.
Correct.
Not only in terms of the number of seats they have, but really in terms of the historic relationship with the Shia. The Kurds and the Shia leadership, from the very beginning, from before 2003, had what's called a strategic alliance. And there may be differences, political differences, economic differences, differences over oil issues, but in a way there is a level of trust between many of the Shia leadership, many in the Shia leadership, and the KDP, and to a certain extent the PUK. This is probably not true of the Kurds and Maliki. There's a legacy of accumulated lack of trust, problems, disagreements between the Kurds and Maliki from the era when he was prime minister.
Yeah, I mean, Kirkuk is still comes to mind. I mean, they really had a bigger clash there.
But it goes beyond Kirkuk. There has been, from 2008 to 2014, or 2006 to 2014, when Maliki was prime minister, there's been an accumulation of tensions and bad blood. But with other leaders, for example, with Amar al-Hakim, with Amiri, Hadi al-Amiri, there is a history of good relations and trust. So this is why I say the KDP are the more weighty element in this whole sort of balance of the situation. The Kurds have repeatedly called for a national dialogue. They have offered to host it in Erbil. They have offered to mediate. Only a few days ago, the president of the KRG, Nishirvan Barzani, was supposed to go to Baghdad and Najaf, to Hanana, to meet with Muqtada Sadr. I think he got as far as Baghdad. He certainly did not go to Najaf. They are very concerned about Shia conflict. They do not want to be part of that Shia conflict. And they want to see it resolved. They have a very good relationship with Muqtada Sadr. And they're not ready to give up the tripartite alliance.
Right. On
the other hand, they do feel that they want to see where the wind is blowing.
Yeah.
They do not want to throw their weight completely behind Muqtada Sadr, because that would be, in a way, choosing sides in the Shia conflict.
Right.
The Sunnis are on less stable ground. One of the things we have to remember, or we have to bring forward, is the fact that there are elements within the coordination framework who are encouraging dissent against the sovereignty alliance and against Halbusi. The sort of anti-Halbusi movement that we are witnessing in Anbar province is, at least in part, instigated by elements within the coordination framework.
Right.
And Halbusi knows this very well. And therefore, he is not inclined to abandon Muqtada Sadr and walk into the coordination framework camp.
Correct.
He knows that behind the scenes, they are instigating opposition to him.
Yeah, he'll get burned anyway.
Correct. And in fact, members of the coordination framework, Qais al-Khazali, Maliki, certainly, have repeatedly called for unseating Halbusi as Speaker of Parliament and electing a new speaker.
That's correct.
This is not likely to endear Halbusi to them.
That's correct.
Or rather endear them to Halbusi.
Yeah.
So there is.
So yeah. It's still, we can call it as, this is a very fluid kind of situation as far as coalition building or coalition, the way the coalitions were built a few months ago.
Yes.
It's still not quite set.
I don't think the curse of the Sunnis.
For our time expires, I wanted to ask you about, President Barham Saleh basically agreed with the Sadrists, maybe that we should suspend Parliament. We should basically have new elections, early elections. Is that at all possible? I know the Judicial Council was going to meet today to discuss that.
Yes, the Federal Supreme Court, which is the constitutional court in Iraq,
right,
has postponed yet again.
Right. Okay.
Okay. President Saleh made a really important speech, gave an important speech yesterday. He understands the problem in the country, the political problems of the country. He's very aware of them. He's an intelligent and very thoughtful man. And he's somebody who really has the interests of all Iraq at heart. What I want to stress is what Barham Saleh said is what most of the country believes and feels. It is not just the Sadrists who want reform. It is the vast majority of the population that thinks that this political process is broken, the political system is defunct, it cannot go on as it has for the last 19, 20 years, and very far-reaching reforms to everything are needed before our system can become healthy.
Right. Yeah.
He was really expressing the sentiment of a nation, not just the Sadrists. Right. And this is where the coordination framework is tone deaf. They think that the established order can resume and that, you can reform on the edges. You can change the electoral law, you can have new elections, etc. This is not sufficient, and most people, and most thinking people in the country recognize that we have a broken down system.
Right.
And by the way, in terms of new elections, I think by now, most of the political parties have come out in favor of new elections. The question is, do you do it under a new government? Right. Do you do it under the current government?
And the current government is a caretaker government anyway.
Correct, but you could re-empower it. You could say, this caretaker government can have new powers and so on. What is the timing of new elections? When do you dissolve the current parliament? There are procedures and processes that they have to agree on, not just, oh yes, we need new elections.
Right, correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes months too.
It'll take you a year.
I have a whole lot of other questions, but I'm afraid our time is up. I really appreciate your intervention with us today. The conversation was very, very enlightening. I really appreciate your input and expertise on this. And we will go again to you on this topic again. And we certainly hope that the Iraq situation really settles down. Iraq does deserve some peace and stability.
I certainly hope so.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you.